Yo, 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 yo.
Oh.
Shit. Yeah.
And we're live, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome back.
That's what I was going to say. Welcome back, guys. Folks, it's the Producer Lounge, TPL, episode 182. Folks, if you're new here, we're going to talk about music production. That's all you need to know. We're also going to cover live the election stats as the night evolves.
Kanye for prez.
Whoa.
He's running again, right? Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Diddy for prez.
That escalated quickly.
Very quickly.
We like to escalate. Folks, we have NT2 on the pod today.
Oh, shit.
Let's go.
The boys are back in town.
Boys are back.
They're back. Boys are back in town.
Yeah.
If you don't know, it's the beautiful I Am Mountain,
Remix.
returning
again.
legend of the pod,
Hello,
It's true.
I'm here.
and the Novex, first time.
Yes,
That's
yes.
What's up?
First time on a podcast ever, so
Hey,
bear with me.
Dang, Let's go.
Popping
yeah.
that cherry.
Popping the pod cherry.
Ah, shit.
It's basically every guest we have. It's okay.
yeah.
yeah. Lots of those.
Nobody's been on podcast before.
Except those who have.
Yeah,
Well.
everyone has one, it seems like.
I know,
Yes,
right?
True.
So how is everyone?
Doing fantastic.
Wonderful,
good.
wonderful.
Yes. I'm excited to actually bring him on here for the first time because we have a new single out. So,
Hey.
Ooh.
yeah.
Let's fucking go.
We decided to remake Adagio for strings, but future rave. So
Yes.
Ooh, love
Adagio
that.
for rave.
Yes.
Ooh.
Check it out, everywhere. Spotify, all the places.
Hell yeah.
All the
Is it
Hell
out
yeah.
now?
It is.
Yeah.
It is? Okay.
Yep. Came out on my birthday on the 27th.
Yes,
Let's
it did.
go.
Yes, it did.
Happy birthday.
So it's fresh.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
And this is a bucket list track for both of us, but it's been a year in the making.
Oh, at least.
Yeah, something like that.
Solid.
It'll
Nice.
happen.
The hardest part was actually tracking down the MIDI
Oh, yeah.
for the original. Yeah, because it's in a very weird time, and I think we tried a couple different MIDI packs or MIDI downloads, and it was just not.
Sure.
It's close, but not
quite.
quite right. Yeah, it's actually in. I think it's in 6/8 time, which is weird.
Oh, man.
Oh,
Okay.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Love
that's
that.
pretty
So,
exciting.
the fun part is making it 4/4 while it's 6/8. Because
Yeah.
that's what every version of that song in electronic music. It's all 4/4, but the breakdown is in 6/8. So yeah,
Cool.
interesting.
I love that. I want to hear it. I'll have to
yeah.
check it out later.
Bet.
NT2.
NT2.
All right, folks, that's the pod. We're done. That's it.
Everybody have a
See
good
ya.
day.
Bye.
Yeah, bye, guys.
Later.
So quick icebreaker. I was going to say quick icebreaker. Please say your name and a thing you enjoy to do. No, we're not going to do that because we're not in
Wow.
class.
All right.
Guys, it's the first day of semester.
I like using
grade.
sidechain.
When you're staring at a blank sheet of the DAW, what's your go-to to just get inspired quick to just start throwing some flames out?
I don't.
What's
that's- Well, it's always kind of different because sometimes we'll try to find a vocal or make a drum beat or a progression. So it all just kind of depends on what we're feeling
Yeah,
at that time.
I would agree. It's probably different every time. However, I think lately we've been going for vocals. That's kind of the big.
Well, just because it's a more popular thing to do, and we know every time we send something out, we'll be like, you need a vocal, so why don't we just start with this anyway?
That's fair.
But yeah, it's I think it's either vocals or the classic, just make a drum beat, make a drop, right? It's like you have to start somewhere, and like with both of us working in the studio, you kind of have to keep the energy up, right? You don't want to be sitting there bored as
Right.
you're working with somebody
Right.
else. So
Yeah.
it's like, okay, we're just gonna go right into a drop and just try to make something cool,
Yeah.
and get the vibes going. So
But I mean, we'll at least figure out what kind of genre we're going to
Yeah.
be working in.
Have some sort of foundation to build off. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Mm-hmm.
and I was talking to David about this before the show, but a big thing I've been getting into is using SUNO for vocals.
Is that the AI?
I was going to ask.
Is that the one
where
that
do you get
generates
your
it?
vocals?
Or
Yeah.
okay. Really? You've been diving into that?
Oh yeah. I've been diving into
really
every
cool.
AI
Really cool.
thing.
Okay.
Whether it's image generation, video generation, I've been on a big AI kick for
Let's
about
go.
the last year. So.
Let's go. Okay.
But with SUNO, the key I found is like, you can tell it to like make a song and it'll come up with everything on its own. But if you're going to use it for something in your own track, it's better to actually just like either write the lyrics yourself or use something like ChatGPT to write lyrics.
Yeah.
Then you import it to SUNO and have it sing it.
Yeah,
and then you can use other tools to stem separate it. And then you have an acapella with your own lyrics and go to town.
Honestly.
So we've been doing that. We did, 4 or 5 times now we've done that?
And we have more than a couple whips that are just sitting in the bank that we need to work on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's been amazing. Like I finally feel like I have, with those 2 tools, like I feel like we have like a Hollywood songwriter like in the studio finally.
I know.
And it's amazing.
It's really nice.
Yeah. The rest of the AI tools out there, video and images and all that, they're not quite there. I'm begging for them to improve. And Sam over at OpenAI is refusing to release his
Right.
Sora, which is like the best version of video generation.
It'll get there.
Yeah,
I bet you.
They haven't put enough guardrails on it for obvious reasons with video generation. But,
Yeah.
What? Nothing could go wrong. What are you talking about,
It
dude?
won't be used for evil.
What would they even make?
Yeah.
We already know what that answer is, guys.
Guys,
it's the number one reason why everyone goes to the internet.
Dude, so I've even heard of like the AI vocal generation stuff, and I was like, fuck, I should try that. And like every time I always just forget, but I need to actually try that. 'Cause I just will sit and like painstakingly go through Splice or YouTube to like find.
Everybody uses Splice though. That's a problem with it.
And then that's another thing, right? Because you find finally a good one, and then it probably has 20,000 downloads, and you're like, okay, that doesn't.
Well, you can
feel
go
good.
get on Beatport and be like, oh, there it is.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. You just.
Right there.
Which, by the way, I don't understand why Splice by default is set to most popular when you search anything.
Dude, drives me nuts. Drives
I'm like,
me.
no, just leave it on whatever I set it on, which is random.
Correct.
Because obviously that's all I want. I don't want, here, give me the top 1,000 most used samples.
Yeah.
That's what I want to put in my song.
It's already been downloaded
Like,
100,000 times. You're gonna love it.
But so yeah, I mean, and with SUNO, like it's not perfect, but
Sure.
Through enough kind of generations, and I found a few things like one of the things it asks you for, like when you're making it, is like describe the kind of genre you want it to make. And I found things like putting like female ambient piano suddenly will just literally give you a vocal with like a basic chord progression piano behind it.
I love that.
So then
Here's the MIDI for you laid out, or at least the chords.
That and like the stem separation then works a lot better because it's not trying to like remove a vocal from like a super busy electronic track.
Yeah.
It's just a piano behind it, and so the algorithm for what is it, ultimate vocal remover? That's I think that's what I use.
The one.
Yep.
Works a lot better and gets a lot less artifacts. So
You could also take that and then put it into. There's another one. I can't remember what the name of it is, but like it's one of those ones where you can put in your own vocal and change the voice.
Oh yeah.
So you could just stem
What is
it
that?
out and then put that vocal into this other thing that also then changes the voice to another thing.
I think it's Audimee. Sound right?
It sounds familiar, yeah.
I think that's the one that does that. Yeah. And you can actually, I think that one you can even train your own model. So like you can just like sing in a little clip yourself, and it will then just make a whole singer's voice out of you. And I've watched guys like, I don't know if you know who Bishu is on Twitch.
Yeah, Bishu's great.
He now has his own model, like with, because they gave him a sponsorship and like a paid account.
Of course, yeah.
Well, he went and made his own model. It's actually like primarily what he uses now because it sings better than he does.
Right,
Like it's more in key and it sounds like him. So why not?
It's based off of his voice. though?
Yeah.
Wow.
He gave it like 2 minutes of audio of him singing or whatever, and it makes a model.
That's
and
so
then
cool.
He's off to the races.
I've
This
seen
is the
ads for
one
that
that I've
shit, but I've
used,
never
yeah.
tried it.
Yeah. Audimee.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing too about at least the song AI stuff, like with SUNO, is the fact that like a free account on SUNO is a stupid amounts of credits. Like all these other AI services, you can make like 5 seconds of video and then you have to pay.
Sure.
Like, I think I was able to make like 10 songs in SUNO before I had to actually pay, and I'm like, thank you. Like, let me actually use the tool for a little while and
Yeah.
see if it's like
See
worth
if you want
Get
it.
my
comfortable.
time, right? And sure enough, I now have an account and I'm willing to pay for it because it's a better tool than anything I've had
Yeah.
access to, right? And like with the video and image stuff, I've barely been able to try it for free to see if it's worth like spending my money on. So I'm like a lot more hesitant to even use it. But
We had a Chef Womp on last week, and he was saying he does like the stem out thing with old like rap songs that he wants to play in his sets, and then he stem masters them. So like old shitty rap songs that don't sound good, but like they're bangers.
actually makes it
He'll
better.
go and he'll go and remix them. Apparently, they null out with the all four stems, even though I'm sure there's like leaking like shit.
Oh,
between
you mean
all
like
the
of
things.
something.
You mean like right after he separates it? Yeah, they should recombine basically
Perfectly.
the same.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it does recombine perfectly, but obviously there's like leaking of bass into the vocal or whatever.
Mhm.
Right.
for
a little bit of
instance.
artifact.
That's actually been, I think it was one of the new songs we've been trying to work on. Funny side effect of that was that we did stem separation on like a vocal and it spit out this
Oh,
weird stem that
yep.
was just like,
I don't remember
know,
which one that was for, but
it was like peeling things off of, it was like artifacts and
Yeah.
like problems, but
Yeah.
we're now actually making a new song out of that stem
Hell
because it was
yes.
like weird, cool ambient stuff.
That's what I'm talking
Oh,
about.
no shit.
we would have gotten no other way.
Wow,
And so it's like,
okay.
okay, you know, like why not?
let's place it in the right place.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I was thinking, I said it on the podcast last week, just like, I want to throw my own song in there
Yeah.
and then have it separated and then use like weird shit from that to go back into the same song again.
Color base, anyone? I mean, it's an entire genre made on artifacts.
I know, literally,
Right,
right?
You're not
Exactly.
wrong.
Exactly.
Oh, guys.
Color base is fascinating to me. Like the whole concept of it's just like future vocoders in a way.
Yeah.
Just forcing harmonics into something. But it's so hard to do it without just sounding like color bass. Because like, have you guys ever played with pitch map before?
I know what it is. We have not played with it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's like a really popular tool for the color bass scene. And I love playing with it, but every time I'm just like, it sounds like I'm about to make like melodic dubstep right now. Like it's so hard to not
just comes
do
out
that
that
sound.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I try
It
all the
sounds
time.
one way.
Yeah, it sounds one way.
Just, yeah, it's its own sounding.
It's spectral.
It sounds like Virtual Riot and AU5.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
But I
Which
mean,
is cool.
Shout out to AU5. I mean, that man
Sure.
is a brilliant genius on YouTube.
It's
Yeah.
fucked,
oh
right?
my god.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that dude.
He is the Elon Musk of
Indeed.
bass,
Indeed.
of bass music. Yeah.
So when you guys are generating vocals, are you using it as like actual like top lines, like they're singing a whole phrase, or are you just doing like chops with it or little like background pieces?
Both.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'd
all of
say
the above?
both.
That's fair.
For sure.
It depends on like kind of what it comes out at the end. Sometimes in some generations it's like, oh, only like a couple lines are good and we'll just use that for think more like a house vocal, right, where you only need like a line or two.
Right, sure.
Versus like the harder thing has been like trying to make like a trance or like a full, you know, couple verses and a chorus and getting all of that without artifacting. That's definitely much harder.
That's,
Oh, yeah.
it's-
But
no.
you just got to keep at it. Like I've
Sure.
definitely gotten a couple out of it.
Yeah.
That's where the paid account comes in because you'll need to regenerate like several times before you'll actually get something that is good out
Right.
the other end. But
Do you need to do like a good amount of processing, or is it kind of just pretty solid out of the box?
like a 50-50. It's interesting because there is some like reverb and processing that's left on it after you stem separate it, but it's not like fully polished. So like it needs some help, but it doesn't need a ton. I mean, the number one thing that I run into constantly with vocals over the years is it's the tuning, right? Like that's almost the tuning and the volume is like 90%
Sure.
of what you're working on in a vocal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that being done because it's a robot, so it's perfectly in tune, right? And the volume's typically pretty consistent. As if it's been compressed, it's not, but you know that's how it generates it.
Right.
So that hard work is kind of done for you, but then you're battling with artifacting. You know, it's like a different problem,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
so the easy things are done for you that would be on a raw vocal that you'd have problems with, but then you have other problems that you have to handle.
Yeah.
So Yeah, everything's a pro and a con, right?
Yeah.
Can you prompt it to give it to you dry? And
yeah.
Does it work?
Nope.
No.
I've tried.
No dry,
son of a-
really.
The best prompt I
Okay.
can come up with is either like female ambient piano or male ambient piano.
Yeah, the problem is
Yeah, makes
what
sense.
you get from that is like a acousticy vibe.
Right.
So if you want something that's like a more of an aggressive kind of a vocal, like you're not really gonna get that from like piano,
Yeah.
whatever.
Right.
You know, like I was trying with like a cappella or like at some point you just have to be like, well, this is all I get. All I get is this option.
Which, by the way, Suno, if you're listening, just make an acapella like little switch.
I know.
Like just
for
click.
real.
Like, all I want is the
shit.
acapella.
Yeah.
Like
No shit.
This is clearly a thing
Why?
made
That would-
for producers. Like,
Why do you
why?
What? Why do you want just the acapella? That makes no sense. Don't you want a
It would
whole
be-
finished song?
Here, just ghostwrite all of it. Thanks.
Yeah.
well,
They're
which
not-
actually, to be fair, that is actually how their marketing material, like, really
Right.
Their
It's
whole
like
thing is
backing
that,
tracks, free backing tracks for your video that you're making or
or
whatever.
like it's music for everyone. So like they market it as like, oh,
Your grandma could make this.
your loved one dies and you want to make a personalized song for them at their funeral. Like literally, like now anyone can do that.
Oh,
right?
I
Like,
spent
for,
5
like, for a
seconds on
photo
this song
slideshow.
from- Yeah.
You know what? You know what would mean a lot to me.
Yeah, exactly.
A personalized song made
AI
by
song.
a robot.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you'd be dead, so it
All-
actually
all
doesn't
we
really
ever-
matter, right?
All we ever want is a fucking handwritten note. What like? We learned nothing over the years.
Yeah,
Isn't that
well,
why they do speeches at funerals? Like,
Right.
come on now.
Well, guys, it's not musicians making the program. It's a bunch of nerds.
It's a bunch of people in San Francisco. Yes,
Yeah, it's a bunch of
exactly.
tech
And, like,
nerds.
how can we make money? Yep, do that.
It's actually built off of it's built from in the same way that like the visual stuff is built, where it's like it's basically like our spectra, our graph that's down here.
Yep.
That's doing like the time. It's using that kind of a thing.
Yeah, the one that's under
to
Austin.
make the music.
Right.
So it's like rebuilding out a track with
That makes sense.
pictures,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
which is fucking crazy
It really is.
to think about.
Which is why it's also like they don't have the switch for an acapella because it has to make like all of it or none of it. You know?
Right. It's not quite
It's
there
like
yet.
part of the spectrum. Yeah.
I bet
Oh,
they're working on it though.
It's on the spectrum.
It's on the spectrum.
It's on the spectrum.
It's
bro.
definitely on the spectrum.
I just hope all they do is not just implement UVR like at the end to just separate it because then it's the same result, right? Like I want like
Sure.
something that's like
Yeah.
give me like a crisp, like perfect acapella.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
They'll figure it out.
Yeah.
They'll
Yeah.
get there.
Hopefully.
Give it a
Go
year.
get them, nerds.
Yeah.
God damn it.
You guys got it.
All right, let's not talk about AI anymore.
Moving on.
That what a nice tangent.
That was
so
that was a fun
AI.
one. Yeah.
No.
I'm so bored with AI at this point.
Yeah.
I fucking
I'm just
don't
tired
wanna
of the
think
wait.
about it.
Make it perfect already.
I know.
I mean, it's going fast as fuck, boy. Like,
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
You're not wrong.
It's
but it
literally moving
It's going
fucking
so
at the speed of light right now.
yeah.
And then there's Travis over here. It's not going
Go
fast enough.
faster.
Go faster. I need it now.
You
I would
promised
like
me.
to be in Mars in like 3 years from now. Hurry up.
I mean, I would.
I mean, that means you got to get on a flight right now.
Right. Okay.
With current technology, bro.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
AI will fix it. AI will fix
It's a
it.
3-month trip.
AI will fix it. That's right.
I would love to make beats on Mars. That sounds fucking rad.
Yeah,
Ooh,
Mars beats.
Martian
Dude.
music.
Dude,
All right.
1/3 the gravity. Like, can you imagine how chill everything will be?
Oh yeah.
Dude,
Like, you drop your beer, you're like, oh, I got it.
Yeah.
before it lands.
Yeah.
Before it lands.
All right. I'm going to call it right now. Martian beats.
Martian
Yeah,
That's
beats.
the new
Let's
genre.
go.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Martian.
You're playing
beats.
basketball. The hoop has to be like 3 times higher. 'Cause
Right.
You can
Yeah.
just fucking.
Yeah,
jump.
what are we in Space Jam? Like, come on, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
This is not really on production talk, but do you think even if you have a pressurized cabin on Mars, is the gravity going to affect the way the sound waves are moving through the air? Is it going to affect how fast I don't know. I don't think so.
think
I don't
it
think so
would.
because
I don't
it's all
think-
sound pressure.
Right.
It's all pressure,
Yeah.
right?
How
Right.
does audio work?
and it's contained.
on
pressure
Mars?
waves.
I mean, it's moving
but there's
through air.
no
There's less
there's
atmosphere.
no way to know.
If you're in a
But
pressured container,
you'd have to be like in your normal Earth kind of atmosphere inside,
right, to
So
survive. So
it should be the same.
it should be the same.
Yeah.
I agree.
Gravity wouldn't have an effect, but like density of the atmosphere or your environment.
Right.
would.
So if you have a live show outside,
You're gonna die
It's-
because there's no oxygen.
you will die.
But it actually probably would sound different.
It would sound.
I
If
guess
you
it
could hear
would.
it,
Less
it would.
atmosphere.
yeah.
I mean, you could set up a microphone outside and play a speaker outside, and then listen to the recording.
That'd be interesting.
Thought about that.
That would be interesting.
Music.
Elon,
on
let's get on
Mars
it.
Sounds totally different.
All right.
Right.
Yep. Elon, set up a. You can play your own beat if you want, Elon.
Yeah. yeah.
Olay.
We'll teach you.
Or just use AI. It's okay.
Or that. Or that.
Probably just use
Which
that.
he will use.
Elon's
He'll
made
use
beats
Grok or
before.
something. Yeah.
I
We
don't
should
have
get a
time for
Duncan
this.
beat is what we should get. Speaking of beats, what's your guys' favorite vegetable? No.
Jesus.
Drum processing. Let's go down this rabbit hole.
I've been down that rabbit hole recently with a client. Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
okay.
perfect.
Yes.
Fresh in the brain then.
What was the topic discussed
Well,
besides
with
drum
his music
processing?
in particular, I find he was actually being too heavy-handed with limiters and stuff.
Okay. Okay.
Like limiters on everything. And I was like, nah, you need more dynamics. Like he was like trying to he was struggling with getting loud, right? And like punchiness. Like he had the volume, right? He had the lufs, but like, everything felt like very flat.
Yeah,
and
the
then I
more
went and
lufs,
looked
the
at
less
his projects and it's like, oh, there's a limiter on the kick. There's a limiter on the snare. There's a limiter on the kick and snare. There's a limiter on the drum group. I'm like, and a lot, to be fair, most of them were actually not doing much. It was just bringing up volume. Like he was using them more for gain staging and they weren't actually like limiting anything. But I feel like there was also maybe some idiosyncrasies in the project with like latency and stuff because he had so many limiters. And as soon as I started removing them, things
smearing.
started feeling more punchy and like,
Yeah.
there was less latency which Ableton is obviously very prone to. So
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a trade-off.
I remember that.
The lower or
yeah,
higher,
we'll get there, David.
the
'Cause I want to ask you about that for
guys,
sure.
You guys know.
the lower or higher, I guess I don't know which one you go in lufs, the more you lose the punch. So there's definitely like
Higher. Well,
right.
Well, the
When
number
it's-
goes down, as
but
you
it's
approach
going, but you're
zero.
going up
Yeah.
towards zero.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like, we'll say higher. The higher you go in lufs, because as you reach towards -1 from -5, you're technically going higher.
Yep. True.
Maths.
That's
Math.
Quick
Math is hard.
Congratulations,
Quick
Math,
math.
is very hard.
No, that would be lower.
No, it's not.
-1 to -5?
No, -5 to -1.
Oh, my bad.
Quick maths.
Quick math.
So
Repeated
there's,
quick math.
there's definitely a balance in there of not squashing it too much while keeping your dynamics and your punch intact. It's probably my favorite part of production is just making the drums sit in that perfect little area.
I think the number one thing I've found, especially working with you, go ahead.
I was going to say, I was like, your effects rack for any type of processing that we do is absolutely phenomenal.
I think it's a lot less than what most people think, though. Like,
Sure.
I use far less compression now than I ever did for the first
Same.
5 years. Like my stuff is so much more dynamic than it used to be. And like you guys were the ones that actually started me like down that train, to be honest. Like less bass, less, more dynamics, like less limiting, just like make it breathe and actually like, oh, lo and behold, there's all the punch you were looking for.
yeah.
Right.
So like at this point, my mastering chain on all of our stuff, it's 3 plugins. It's the inflator, which is basically barely being used. It's just a little bump.
Yeah.
What is
Little
that?
Oxford inflator.
It's basically
I've heard the name.
it's a saturation curve. That's all it is.
Okay. Sick.
I have a recreation of it made in Bitwig that I can send you, and it's basically a saturator.
I would be
a
thoroughly
very
disappointed
specific
if that's all it is, but also not surprised.
Yeah, no. I can show
Yeah,
you
right.
the video of this guy recreating it in Bitwig, and he like does all the math to figure out what the curve is and all sorts of stuff.
Well, and that's in that the patcher, right, or whatever it is you guys have. Yeah. So that
It's
because
inside the
I've
grid.
tried to remake it in Ableton and you can't.
No, you need
Because you have to have like custom curves and
correct
stuff for the
Yeah,
saturation.
Yeah,
and
it's
stuff.
made in the grid.
Yeah. But it's
So it's an EQ into saturation, essentially.
Could you do it with
No, it's just a saturator.
Could you do it with M Wave Shaper?
Maybe
no,
but it's more
No?
because it's like asymmetrical
It's a-
based on like the gain and everything. Like
custom curve.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay.
But anyways, so it's basically a little bit of saturation into a clipper and into a limiter, and like
Nice.
my clipper does most of the work actually,
Yep.
and then just a little bit
Goddamn
more
right.
on the back end with the limiter, and that I used to have a mastering chain that was 20 plugins long. I mean, you guys
Wow.
remember back in the day, like with meetups and stuff, I had
Let's go.
so many plugins that were on the
Sure.
master, and like
Totally.
Same.
it's also like you're sticking the band-aid on the bad mix, right? Back in the day,
right.
versus
Totally.
now the mix stands on its own. So,
Yeah.
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 Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
exactly.
But that's my number one thing I see when clients come in. It's like they're doing way too much limiting, way too much compression. It's got to be done right. You need a lot of compression in modern electronic music, but you have to do it right. Otherwise, you're just ending up with this like flat,
True.
boring thing.
True.
It's got to be in the right spots is the best way to describe it.
Yeah, you need like heavy-handed compression in order to reduce like the dynamics of the sound. But when it comes to any kind of like a compression that's doing like a longer attack or something like that, you can't fucking hit that thing very hard, or else you got a fucking peak at the very beginning of the thing.
Yep.
That's like 5 dB.
Right. A 2-to-1 is your friend.
Glue compressor taught me that lesson. Yeah. The only thing you can get out of glue compressor when you push it hard is like an insane spike at the beginning and
Right.
nothing else.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Which that into a little clipper can do some nice things, but that's a whole nother story.
Right.
Which is, I think, why Glue Compressor has that little built-in clip.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
exactly.
Fucking, they
They
know.
know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know. But yeah,
They're
what
solving
was the
the
original? Like just drum
problem.
processing
Yeah,
in general?
what-
Was
yeah,
that the question?
Yeah.
Drum
Yeah.
processing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the big. I think one of the big things that we definitely do in all of our tracks that I haven't seen too many other people do, and this is a very 4 on the floor pertinent thing.
Okay,
but,
let's go.
is using track spacer on like your snare or clap. So whenever it's like on top of the kick, right? Because that's 4 on the floor, like house music. The loudest peak you will ever have in your song is on the 2 and the 4, because I mean the kick should be the loudest thing in your mix, and then you're throwing a snare or clap on top.
You're
of
track
it.
spacering the snare to the kick,
Correct.
so it pulls the snare tone out of the kick sound,
No,
or opposite.
it's pulling. Yeah, because again, 4 on the floor, your snares and claps are pretty thin most of the time. Like they're not like big chunky
True.
drum and bass
Yeah.
snares or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm removing that body as the kick happes, but as the
Oh, you're getting rid of the body of the.
like it's like
of the
everything
clap.
everything under like 500 hertz is what track spacer is removing.
Okay.
And then it just I found using that because track spacer is like a dynamic EQ, multi-band EQ. It's not necessarily a compressor with sidechain.
Yeah, it's almost
Yeah.
a spectral kind of thing.
It's like soothed in a way.
Yeah,
I don't know what
almost.
track spacer
And so
is.
it's a lot. If you tried to do that with like shaper box, like what I'm doing, sure you could set up like a under 500 hertz like sidechain to the kick or whatever, but it's too much doing it that way versus track spacer's a lot more transparent.
Okay.
And you can get away with actually ducking a little more, which saves that like the kick transient, but still keeping the kick or the clapper snare sounding the same.
Okay.
But this is something very pertinent to only in like trance or house or future wave or whatever that we make, where a lot of times your kick or your clapper snare is very thin,
Happening at the same time as well.
and happening at the same time. But
Yeah.
that's definitely something I've seen that I don't know that anybody else I know of that puts specifically track spacer, and it just gets a result that I've found that is very, very clean. And it lets me avoid having to limit my kick and snare to get, that's what I used to have to do is like you'd have to put a limiter on the kick and clap together or whatever to get them to like come out at the same volume.
Oh yeah.
And
I
you
remember
don't
that
have to
being-
worry about that.
I remember that being such a struggle.
I feel like I'm still in that struggle. I just like clip them together.
Yeah.
Is
Still
that the
very
move?
valid. It's just I've found the more I can, it's a balance, right? And the more I can avoid the clipping for
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 sure.
that,
100%.
the better result that I end up
Yeah.
getting.
Whatever bullshit and
You can
fluff
get-
you can remove
Yeah.
before it all. Yeah.
Yeah, you
And-
can get
and
it
then-
more transparent that way for sure.
And then the rest of my drum process, or our drum processing, my drum processing, because it's not only
It's
our
his drum
project that I
process.
do the mixing on,
It's
but
his.
is compression on the tops, but not too much. I used to smash like in parallel, like super hard, but now I realize it just makes
Same.
everything way too bright and harsh.
Right.
So yeah, just some gentle compression, but that's basically it. It's track spacer to make room, so you're not clipping on the 2 and the 4, and then a little bit of compression. Yeah.
On the note of track spacing the clap to the kick, what do you do when you just have the clap happen on its own? Do you just have a duplicated track down below that has the kick or the clap a little more full than it is?
No, because that's the beauty of track spacer is if the kick's not happening, it's not triggering. So then the whole sample plays.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's, again, if you were trying to use shaper box or something, right? I mean, I guess if you were audio triggering shaper box, then
Right.
it
right.
would be
right.
the same situation.
The issue
but-
I always had with that is like once I'm getting limited at the end of the everything on the master, and maybe this is just me limiting too hard at some point, but when the clap happens without the kick, it would immediately be just like fucking
Way too
smashing
hard.
you in the face.
Right. Right. That's
Which
what
is what I'm thinking you're talking
yeah, that's
about.
what I was
with
trying
this.
to bring up.
Gain automation.
Okay. Okay.
Lower
You
that
just turn
sample.
it down. You just turn
And
it
that's
down.
what I used to do too.
Yeah.
I
Just
wanted
automate
to-
that sample.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, fair. Good point.
Automation is your friend, folks.
Have you
gosh.
seen this free GitHub Spectral compressor?
I've watched that video, yes.
Yeah.
You should
I
get it.
use
Sick.
the fuck out of that. By the way,
I've yet to try it. So
it has sidechain, so you can sidechain. You could do that thing that you're doing with Track Spacer with this plugin.
okay.
And it has anywhere from 64 to like
1200.
yeah,
And
like
that was the virtual
like
riot video originally, right?
120,000
I think so.
Or was it
like
AU5?
bands or some
No,
shit
it
like
was
that.
Ouse. It was right.
I think
who
it's
was it?
AU5.
I think it was him.
It's one of them.
Yeah.
Frequent or AU5.
Yeah.
It's got to be AU5,
This is,
right?
by the way, this is a
Yo.
like little
it's
3 or
insane.
4 plugin suite from like some random dude on GitHub.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
it's
like-
ugly as sin.
Yeah.
But
If-
boy.
But they're amazing.
How much is
Like-
it?
Oh, it's free.
It's free.
'cause It's
Oh,
just all
bet.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's some
Yeah.
tiny
If you
little
hit
dude in his
John
basement
up-
basically that made these plugins and like
If you
They're
hit
amazing.
John up, he'll send you just like the folder because it's
I have
know-
it. I just
Oh, you have it?
I just
Okay.
haven't tried it yet.
dude. So it has upwards and downwards compression as an option, and
Yep.
then you have you can sidechain based on a different thing. You can tell it to. You can just use it as a regular compressor, which it works great as like OTT type of compression. I use it really often just as like a pretty straightforward compressor.
Same.
On like a 2-to-1, and then I'll go through different like band amounts because like a 64 band is way different than like 2048 bands.
That's a lot of bands.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
insane.
and that's like halfway. Is like it starts out on
That's wild.
2048, and then it will just like go up like crazy from there. But
Do you
at
find
some point, it starts getting like really stale with the more you do. I like pulling it down to like less often.
right. It'll get very spectrally where it's just like giving your entire frequency spectrum just a haircut,
Flat.
just a buzz,
Yeah.
and you're like, all right, well, calm down.
do you find when you're using it, more like a traditional compressor, is it more transparent because of all the, because it's not just like a single threshold, or is it?
I think it does a good job of cleaning up peaks, area to area throughout your frequency spectrum. which is what I'm using it for, kind of like.
I'm asking
kind of a
because that's I
soothe.
guess I haven't found a use case, which is why I haven't pulled it out yet, right? Because I watched the video of like I'm like, well, that's cool and all, but like I'm not AU5, so
Sure.
I don't have a use case for it.
I'm always trying to get more highs out of my sounds and get them a little bit more crispy and like loud, like that way. Get them a little bit more like pink noise kind of flatness.
Yeah.
So it does a really good job of that. And then you can also tell it to like you can adjust the threshold like on a curve, so where it's like hitting is different depending on what you want. So
Yeah.
it can be like a curved threshold that like on the low end it lets more through, and then it really hits hard in the middle, and then it lets more through on the high end, or like the opposite of that.
Yeah, more of a
interesting.
cone.
So what this sounds like
It's
is
weird.
we need to spend a night in the studio playing with it,
Yeah,
and
I'm
you
down.
tell me what sounds good, because
I'm down.
he's the ears, man. That's a big part of like
Oh,
why I
nice.
work with him.
Nice.
He's the genius, and
I'm the man at the keyboard that knows all the hotkeys, and then he's the one that actually tells me what sounds good.
So
most of the time,
you're like the Rick Rubin in the room. where
exactly.
you're like, no, it needs a
He
little
really
more.
is.
Yeah.
He really is.
Let's go.
I trust his taste very much.
Hell yeah.
well, I
That's
mean,
always good.
we agree on we agree on it in the end, anyways. But yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course, man.
Yeah, I definitely use it
Aw.
as kind of a soothe, because I'm not a big fan of soothe taking things out in a spectral way. I kind of want to just spectrally give it a haircut, you know? Because like soothe always imparts a sound that I don't necessarily enjoy.
Yeah.
Um,
Artifacts.
Yeah, and it just has too much liberty in what it tries to take out. Like I'm like, I don't trust you to like know exactly what to take out. Like I understand it's just taking the peaks and pointing them down, but sometimes I just want those peaks flat, not taken all the way down. And Spectral Compressor on like a 2-to-1 is it's fucking beautiful. It's beautiful.
Soothe was like one of those things that I got it, and I put it on everything, right? And then you realize, like, wait a second, it's actually making everything have a sound.
Yeah, exactly.
And like
It
now I'm
limits
like,
the shit out of it too.
to me,
It's
I'm
just
like, do I want less 3K? Okay, I'll reach for Soothe. Otherwise, that's about it. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's like, do I want less harshness? Like that's my harshness
Right,
tool.
right.
Otherwise, like,
right.
yeah. Which speaking of drums, that actually is something I've used it on a lot. Is with clients that have halftime music or something where it's a big full snare or clap, is putting that on the snare or clap in like the 3K range only, because when you push like drums like that all the way up, I don't know, a pet peeve of mine is listening to halftime music and like you're just smashing the eardrum with 3K every time the kick or snare happens.
Yeah.
Like I love a nice like thumpy like thunk, like snare drum like in like 500, but if it's like stabbing you in the ear, I can't stand it. So
the 4K will be ass too.
yeah. So that's something I'll use that to soften that up, like on like halftime
Gotcha.
tracks. But I've pretty much
I
quit
really-
using Soothe otherwise.
And I don't have Soothe 2, so maybe I'm wrong, but I wish Soothe had a linear phase setting. I don't care what latency would put on, but it was
That's a
definitely
good point. I've never even thought about that.
it would definitely help with more transient heavy things, because I'd probably use it a little bit more on drums, but I've definitely
Be
found
your
myself
haircut for
using
sure.
it
Oop.
and it'll smear some stuff. Although
It
if
has
you
oversampling for sure. I know that.
yeah,
But Soothe 1 has that too.
yeah, but I'm like at this point I use
But you want like linear
Yeah.
versus I
I use that on
don't
everything
know that
now.
It does.
I don't know if it does either. I've never even thought about that. Yeah.
But I don't use Soothe that much anyways.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm like, could you like with
Right,
with,
I don't
with
know.
it being like the real time response that it does? I'm not sure that
I mean, with the amount
the
of bands it
processing
probably
can,
has,
yeah, like
it
I
would
don't know
probably,
that linear processing. It'd probably be way too CPU intensive. To do
Oh,
that.
right.
or the latency would be like
that.
30 minutes.
Yeah, yeah, like some of the RX plugins. Oh my gosh,
Exactly.
you put on what's the one? It's either voice denoiser or one of the other. Like,
Right.
oh my god, it's like 8,000 milliseconds of
Yeah.
latency.
Jesus, what?
You just
yeah.
have to immediately
You have to
minutes is
immediately
that?
freeze and
Yeah.
flatten it. Like,
Oh,
it works amazing, but like, good luck listening to it in real time.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Those RX plugins are sick as fuck.
They are. They're on
underrated.
they're on my shortcut of my Stream Deck for plugins. I have a
What
whole
do
folder.
they make?
It's all like deverb, declick, de-static.
It's
Those-
all the
those
tools
little
you
plugins.
get in the actual RX standalone program, but like as individual little,
Okay. I don't think I've
plugins.
used any of them.
Oh yeah.
Cool. I'll have to check them
anything-
out.
really
When it
cool.
comes to audio repair, it's like the gold standard.
Really interesting.
Like,
Okay.
Removing hiss, hum, like ground loop hum. Like there's literally a plugin that just like you throw it on and it basically removes ground loop hum, which
Fuck
is
yeah.
amazing and
Okay.
usually very
Yeah.
hard to do
Yep.
with all of the different frequencies that are involved in that.
Yep.
Right.
What else is
They're always annoying. They
the
have
mouth
to like
declick.
learn it, and then
I love the
it does the
declick.
job for you.
The mouth declick is like my favorite because I
Oh, nice.
I can't stand.
Yep.
It's, so like every vocal, I just immediately slap that on because I just
Yep.
any little clicks and pops, it drives
It's
me
gone.
insane. And yeah, and
That's a
that
good call.
yeah.
Again. There you
I didn't realize there was one of those.
What, the mouth declick?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We'll share condoms.
I knocked it off at somewhere.
This is some level of Eskimo
Oh, you lost it.
broness.
Oh.
Yeah, well, because I knocked
Yeah.
it off earlier, and now it's just gone. Bye. My bad.
All good. It's fine.
I can't believe you, dude.
All right, so
Unbelievable.
I have a question for you now.
Okay.
Bitwig.
Yeah.
Only because I haven't seen you guys in a few months.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
longer than that even.
A long time. Yeah.
Why and what makes you love it? Like, what was the reason for the initial switch, and then now, like, what's keeping you around? I'm dying to know.
Now begins our TED Talk. Folks,
Yeah, god damn it.
Are you guys ready for
Because
this?
You opened up
I've thought about
Pandora's
this.
box
Can I
trying to
get,
get
can I,
I've thought
can I get
about-
another beer first?
But I've literally thought about like
Do you actually
switching,
need one? I'll grab you one.
switching to Bitwig.
be
I haven't
great.
told you this, Noah, but like I've seriously considered it.
Wait,
and-
what?
Because of these two.
Excuse me?
Yeah, oh yeah. Because it's as close as you'll get to Ableton in terms of like ease of switch, right? Am I wrong in saying that?
No, I think you're right.
Yeah.
But
But
there seems to be so much more I'm
Travis
missing out
also,
on,
if you
and
want
that's
to.
why I'm.
The lore is it's made by people that were originally developers for Ableton.
Yeah.
we were
and
talking
they did
about that,
things that
weren't
they
we?
wanted to do differently. But the main thing for me that I love is the
What was the initial draw?
modulation stuff
Okay.
is so fucking goated.
It really is. Yeah.
The modulation is goated as fuck. You can modulate. You could have one LFO that controls anything in your whole entire track if you wanted to. I don't do that very often, but it's like a thing you could do.
Wait. So you can just assign it to that many things?
Anything you want,
But how is that different than
Across
the
the-
LFO in Ableton?
because it doesn't crash your fucking computer.
Okay, fair enough. No, actually, fair enough. Like straight up,
yeah.
because the LFO is a Max for Live device
It's
actually
also
under the hood.
it's
so-
also very easy to like move around and drag to different things. And there's way more options for modulators too. So you got like random. There's like multiple LFO options. There's a drawable LFO.
A drawable envelope.
that's cool.
Yep, drawable
That's
LFO,
cool.
drawable envelope.
With the Ableton LFO 2, you can only map it to like
Yeah,
10.
there's a limit.
Yeah.
So it's unlimited. Then it's just
I think
you just,
it's
Yeah,
unlimited,
it'll
right?
just keep going.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, and you can
But
have as
I-
many LFOs as you want
But
to.
then how do you?
Wow.
How does that not crash your computer?
I know, right? Yeah. you think-
Because their code base is way cleaner because
Correct.
it's not 20 years old.
Yeah.
That is
Also-
one magical thing about Bitwig.
Also,
yeah.
they just moved a bunch of the things in Bitwig over to the graphics card. So, like any kind of,
GPU life now in the
Yeah.
DAW, huh?
oh yeah, oh yeah. So, like any kind
I
of
thought you didn't want to talk about
visual
AI.
component that's happening in the in Bitwig now is using
Oh, it
your
actually
GPU,
runs. Okay.
instead of using the CPU. Which
Is it running
helps.
audio through the GPU too, though?
no.
No.
Okay, so it's still doing like CPU threading the same.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
But
what I want
any
them
of
to
the
change.
offshoot stuff.
Please give me a DAW that lets me not run threads on my CPU because that's the most annoying thing. Like with Ableton is like there's just a hard limit to how much processing you can do on a channel before it starts bogging down the project. Like
Right.
because the way Ableton, like you can check the manual on this, like the way Ableton assigns its processing is like, so I have a Mac Studio, so I have, I don't know, 16 threads or whatever it is, right, in my CPU. That means I can only technically, it's assigning like track 1 goes to CPU thread 1, track 2 goes to CPU thread 2, etc. And then it sits there and rinses and repeats based on how many channels you have in your project. And what that means then is, say on track 1, you have like a whole bunch of plugins, you're going to eat up that single thread processing power. And once it's gone, that's it. It can't then just like, oh, I need more processing and like grab another thread. It's stuck. So like you can have a 64 processor, you know, like Xenon, like server CPU. And all that means is that you maybe can run a few more channels like in parallel, but it doesn't mean that every channel can actually get any more processing power. And so,
interesting.
Yeah. So this is like a fundamental limit of DAWs that they all work this way. You have to like spread the load somehow, right? And
Said spread the load.
That's what she said.
Hey,
We're still children.
as soon as it came out of my mouth, I knew you were going to call me out on that.
I saw you look around for a second. You're just like, I'm gonna keep going.
Shit.
Yeah.
But you know, there's just this limit as to how they do audio
Interesting.
processing.
Yeah.
And so no matter how powerful your computer is, it's all about, it's like this combination of cores, like clock speed and number of cores. And still, even to this day, like 4.5 gigahertz or whatever the latest Intel CPUs are, you know, you're going to want to throw more plugins on that single channel than it's going to be able to handle.
Interesting.
So that's why I was curious if they'd somehow worked around that or not. But
I don't find myself putting enough things on one channel to have a problem. Personally.
I used to until I stopped listening to John with making
Oh
music.
God, yeah.
Because John will throw like a whole rack of like 60 plugins, and I'm like, well, that's why your computer. He's like, why is my computer? I'm like, well, cause
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Well, John will be John.
yes, John will be John.
He still does it too.
I'm
He
sure.
still does it.
And he probably has an even better computer than I can even
Yeah, and he still
imagine
bogs it
or
down.
dream
Oh,
of.
I'm sure he has top of the line.
Yeah.
We were building a fucking drum rack the other day, and he finally fleshed out his whole like drum rack concept. And he can't even use it because just using his drum rack, like you can't even build a song because it's
having-
just so fucked.
That's your
having
whole song is you
flashback.
have a beat.
Yeah.
I'm having flashbacks to using VCV Rack last year. Or
I know.
last week,
Oh.
actually. Oh my gosh.
Oh God,
I'm getting into VCV Rack, by the
that
way.
thing scares me.
That's the next topic. That's what I was going to bring up after.
That's what he's been trying to
Well,
teach
that's
me,
why I'm
'cause I
leading-
know
I'm like,
nothing about
is-
analog.
Yeah, yeah, dude, it's scary.
Well, this one might be something Caleb would bring up as far as Bitwig goes, because we got the grid, which I don't really use very much, but Caleb does.
Yes.
But that's where I was like, because I'm getting into VCV Rack now as of like a week ago, like really like diving in and actually like trying to learn modular. I'm like, is having something like Bitwig actually just like a better alternative where I get some of what I'm actually like wanting that Ableton doesn't have, but like it's not a whole other program. You know what I mean? Like it's within still the same like project or working environment.
Well, here I'll give you a couple more reasons.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. You didn't. You haven't answered my initial questions yet. Yes.
You can bounce things with 2 clicks instead of 4.
Oh.
Which is really handy. You just right click bounce.
It's now 2, but they fixed it in 12. But yes, continue.
You can freeze and.
It's 1 click now in the right click menu.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. Well,
Nice.
The Germans finally caught up with their
now, can you
efficiency,
do
which
it-
is amazing. 'Cause usually they're leading the charge, but
it keeps the original frozen, right?
no, it does not. It will just freeze and flatten.
Yeah.
Like
And
you
delete
now,
the track,
You know,
though.
the classic like
It
you
will
can
delete
right
the
click
track.
freeze, but right below freeze is now freeze and flatten. So
Right,
it'll
but
just do both operations.
Will you
in
keep
one.
the original track?
No.
No.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. In Bitwig, you can either bounce and it'll
In
just.
place.
So
it'll
like
just,
every other DAW.
Right.
Like
right.
Ableton's the
Yeah.
weird one on that one.
Correct.
Yeah.
The browser on Bitwig is way more capable. There's just a plus sign next to each plugin you put in, and it just automatically brings up the browser. You type, adds in, instead of control
I get
F-ing constantly.
Oh, for
No,
like
so-
preset browsing and stuff.
Yeah.
So instead of hotkeys,
Browser is very good.
Yeah, the browser's
No, I
strong
think
as
he's
fuck.
saying instead of like, it's like you have to open the Serum plugin
Oh,
and then
okay.
go into like the menu in
Yeah,
Serum.
yeah.
Instead, you can just like browse the presets of Serum.
Well,
like
it's actually both.
awesome.
down in the devices.
You can
really
do that,
cool.
but you also don't have to control F if you want to look for utility. There's just a plus sign that's right on the track that you just hit and type in utility, which in Bitwig it's called tool. But so the browser's great. When it crashes, which is probably 1 in every 30 times that Ableton crashes, your Serum preset is still there,
Oh,
which is
oh my
beautiful.
God. Holy
I
shit.
know.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
fucking amazing.
How does it even?
I don't know.
I don't know. It's magic.
But it works every time.
It's magic.
Oh my God, that alone
I know. It's
So-
crazy.
probably
So-
just changed my mind.
It's crazy.
All right, so are we going to Bitwig? Is that
Dude,
what
We
we're
it's-
might be.
It's great.
Because that alone, bro. We've had that crash.
I know, and then we got to rebuild the whole
Yep.
fucking thing.
Like
Also-
and it's always when that crash happens, it's always the most inopportune time.
Yeah, always.
but
you have
always.
that's the way it
you have
works.
like
it's 'cause we're
5
using
channels that are
so
all like
much
Yeah.
CPU.
from
Yeah.
scratch patches,
Yep.
and then it crashes.
Yep.
And you're like, well,
I'm
they're
just
gone.
gonna go home now. Like,
Yeah.
it was-
Right.
Yes.
Typically, when it crashes, it just crashes the plugins.
And you just reload.
within the DAW. It
This-
doesn't crash the DAW. It
That's
just,
the cool part to me.
It pops up a little thing that's like your plugin crash, and then you're like reload the plugins.
Yeah. It doesn't
Also,
force close
in
everything.
relation to the bounce thing, when you bounces it to a new channel, you can deactivate the channel that you were using, and it will hide itself based on whether you're showing the deactivated
So you can actually
things
then
or not.
hide tracks. That's
Yeah.
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 So like when I'm working on a song and I'm getting toward the end, and I've gone through and I've like bounced down every single one of my channels, they're all still there. They're just hiding in
Yeah,
the
they're just-
background while I'm working on
Right.
them.
Not taking up CPU
Yeah.
or anything.
Yep, they're just chilling
That's
there. So if I
insane.
want to go back and grab some MIDI or
wow.
refuck
There's
with
so many
a
things that, like-
little preset
Yeah.
or something, I can go back and do that.
Now, is it free?
No.
Okay, the last thing I was
But
gonna
it's
say,
cheaper than Ableton.
It's half the price of
Ableton is so
Ableton.
Yeah.
expensive.
yeah.
It is half the
Right.
price. It's $400.
what about
that's
the
not bad.
upgrades?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, what are the upgrades?
They had since
It's like
we've had it.
$100 a year.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
cheap. Oh, per year?
No, per when you need to upgrade. We've gone 2 years without having to upgrade.
Yeah.
So
Without
it's just
having
like
to
a
pay
buy.
for an
It's like a
upgrade.
buy choice thing, kind of. Whenever.
Well,
you
there's
get,
definitely
like,
that, but there's a lot of upgrades you just get in your current plan. Like we've upgraded once since we got it.
I'm pretty sure every year it will always update any kind of bug fixes, that sort of things. It will always do those things.
It's like version.
But when
updates
they
with-
add like
Yeah.
let's say a Spectral suite like they did, which is another great reason to have
really
Bitwig. The Spectral plugins are
I
sick.
know Ableton doesn't have Spectral. Come on.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it does. They added that recently.
What is it?
Spectral. That's what it's
What?
called.
Am I missing out on this?
That's what it's called.
Oh, what the fuck? How am I? I know they have spectral delay. I thought that was like the only.
Or I mean, maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Is it not quite the same then? I guess maybe not.
don't
I
know.
don't. I don't
Well,
use Spectral plugins all
the
that often.
Bitwig
so-
ones are different. They are Spectral containers, which everything's a container in Bitwig.
But it's like a
It's like-
multi-band,
it's like a
but
group-
Spectral instead.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So you can spectrally multiband based on whatever the Spectral thing is doing, and then
Yeah.
put different effects on each different band.
That's the one thing I remember seeing early on that was like
that's-
enticing
that's
was
really
just like
cool.
the
They also have
multi-band processing
a
and stuff.
loud
Right.
split, so you can like turn up and down like. Let's say the quietest part of the sound, you can like solo that out and like do things with that spectrally. And they also have a transient
A
split.
transient split, which is
Aw.
fucking sick.
That is sweet.
And
Yeah.
my favorite, the frequency split, which is
Yeah.
it just sets the whole spectral frequency spectrum into certain slices of bands into 4 categories that you can make larger or smaller. And you can affect each one individually with different things. And then you can also set a modulator to where those bands are So you can like set
Oh.
a random and have a bunch of different plugins on each one.
I
And
use
it's
it
like
constantly.
Yeah, I use it on every track. It's fucking
Can,
so
can you
sick.
have it split it where it only
Crazy.
targets even or odd
Yep,
harmonics?
that's the other
Is
split.
that the one?
Yeah.
Dude, that's
Yeah.
fucking
That one's-
insane.
it's even
See,
odd
This
or
sounds really
neither.
cool, dude.
Yeah.
I told you, coming to this house,
Yeah.
It's sick.
like
It's dangerous.
you think I know a lot.
And you definitely
My
do.
friends know a lot more.
Well, we
don't know
complete
about
each
that.
other.
Yes.
I don't know about that.
But the grid alone is also very sick because it acts as an instrument or an effects rack.
Yeah,
So
and,
you
and
can-
this is like a patching environment
Yes,
almost,
yes.
similar to like VCV.
And
at that point.
it is- I've barely scratched the surface over the last like 8 months. I've been actually like using it a lot, but man, it's so sick. You would love it, especially if you're getting into VCV rack. You will enjoy it.
I'm
It's
intrigued.
got all
I'm
the
intrigued
3D
this
for
all
sure.
inserts.
sounds like enough that
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
we're gonna have to play around with it.
Yeah,
a
I was
little
like,
bit.
let's at least dabble.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can
and
get the
then-
trial.
Yeah, figure out.
Honestly, so they talk about Bitwig every single pod, right? Of course, with good reason.
Yeah.
The only
Yeah.
cons I've really seen is that it's just not as popular as Ableton. So if you're trying to work with people, they're probably
True.
in Ableton.
well, then you can bounce the audio though.
You can.
You can.
Oh, I
You
got
can do
one
that.
more. I got one
Maybe
more
that's the
thing
only one.
after
I
this.
thought I had a second one, but I think that's it. Like it's cheaper.
That's the
it
big
does
one.
more. It does like
with other DAWs, it's
Well,
just popularity.
The
Yeah.
thing
Right.
with Bitwig also is you can open Ableton projects in it.
oh god, that's
What?
right.
True.
Yeah.
And
True.
it, like a year and a half ago, 2
Isn't
years
that
ago,
fucked?
it was
what
like
other DAW does that? That's
it was like
insane.
60%
Absolutely none.
accurate, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's like 85%.
What?
It's pretty damn
In
close.
terms of like what automation is slightly different.
Well, it's got to
or,
like take a
It's-
Ableton plugin and
Right.
move it
Approximate
into a
it.
Bitwig
Right.
version.
Oh,
Right.
like the
So,
the
like-
native.
but all
if
the
you have, like, a
automations there.
Multi-band dynamics doing like an OTT.
Oh, so
it's
like-
gotta
yeah, so the-
make
so
its
the-
own version of that within.
the tone's slightly
Bitwig.
different, but otherwise
Correct.
like the automation is the
Correct.
same.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
That's pretty incredible.
Dude, it's
It's
fucked.
nuts.
It's
Fucking
fucked up. Yeah.
Dude.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
You
good.
probably have convinced me.
Yeah, they're
At least give it a hardcore shot.
Yo,
Yeah.
I'm down. I'm
I
down.
was telling you
Let's go.
before.
Yeah.
I've tried,
jump into
I've
a
tried
studio
Reaper
when
before.
we're done here and fuck around.
I was like,
Like my big first like thought to leave Ableton was like to go to Reaper because I've
Reaper,
watched, Oh
really?
yeah, because I've watched a bunch of people on YouTube. Like one of my kind of all time favorite people on YouTube is Dan Worrell, who does all
Yeah.
the
Goat.
the Fab Filter
Yeah.
stuff, and
Yeah.
he lives in Reaper. And
Yeah.
if that man chooses Reaper,
Yeah.
there's
that's-
probably a reason.
that's
right?
saying a lot.
It's
because
kind
it's
of
the most customizable.
Yes.
Like you can do anything you want in that
Anything.
fucking plugin.
yes, and
Or in
and
that
I
DAW.
and I did. I spent a month and a half literally configuring that DAW to feel exactly like Ableton.
Yep. Yep.
And it's still there. I can still open Reaper, and it will feel like the scrolling, the zooming, all the hotkeys, everything is exactly the same as Ableton. And I even like on might even be a couple tracks on the album that I have like packed away. It
On your album?
started all there in Reaper just because that was part of the whole like I was just messing around and like making stuff in a
Sure.
new
Yeah.
environment for new creative ideas.
Yep.
And it just ended up like it came down to like, well, this is cool, but I've now just made it Ableton,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I can't have any of my friends use it because
I know,
it's
right?
not Ableton.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what the point is of me actually continuing to use this,
fair.
and then I went back to Ableton. But like, I think if there's like a real, I think a big part of it is also the familiarity. I feel like if I sat down in
Yeah.
front of you guys your guys' computers and it's Bitwig, like there's some differences, but like if it's from the people who worked at Ableton,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So like it feels relatively the same.
It'll be intuitive the way you just do anything
There's a-
in it.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's a couple keybinds that are direct opposites of Ableton, which I feel like they did on purpose.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
like, oh, you're used to clicking and pulling
giant
down
middle
to zoom
finger.
in.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
just
the
to
opposite
fuck you, like.
But one last thing I'll say is this thing right here. For all
you can
your-
actually reprogram,
you
which
can
is
just
What?
reprogram the whole
that's
thing.
every other DAW except Ableton.
Yeah.
That's
That's
wild.
And
that's
all you have to do
every
is, like,
professional software
zoom.
ever in
Yeah.
every genre of
Yeah.
software
Right.
except Ableton.
Or what is Control?
Final Cut, DaVinci.
It's
If it's a professional software, it probably has a key remapper.
Mm-hmm.
Control.
Even
Ableton
video
is literally
games.
I was
the
just
only
about
one.
to say my PS5 has that.
Yeah,
It's the only
Right?
one. It's the only one, and
Huh.
it's they feel that the best way is their way, the most efficient way is their way, and why would you do it differently?
Man, just don't tell me what to do.
Yeah. The number one reason I've ever found, like, why Ableton does something, CPU, number one. That's
That makes sense.
everything to them because it's Ableton Live, right? So it is
Oh,
absolutely
for their push. And,
CPU. Whatever is the and when I
Totally.
say that, even
Yeah.
it's like throw out all like they intend for it to be all like you're using it with all their own just native devices and nothing else. Like that's how Ableton intends for you to use it.
Yeah.
And that's how they intend it for on a stage. It will be absolutely rock solid and will never crash on you if you never include a VST. Like that's how they've built it. And it will be absolutely incredibly CPU efficient at the same time because it's meant to be a stage application,
Totally.
pretty much primarily.
Yeah.
We just all happen to use it as a DAW, basically. And so, we're all kind of, it's a secondary function, and we start incorporating a bunch of third-party software and all this other stuff. And then at that point, they just throw up their hands. They're like, well, that's not how we told you how to use it, so
Yeah.
it's not our problem.
And their rat's nest of coding over the course of 20 years,
And,
they're
yeah,
like,
and
"Oh,
it's things just built on top of each
But
other.
it's
and,
backwards
Yeah.
compatible.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, because, as with, a great example of this in another domain is PC versus Mac.
Sure.
Mac,
oh, sure.
Mac continually will throw out the old and break compatibility in order to keep up with the new.
Yeah, always forward, never back.
Versus PC is like, nope. If you're on a Windows 95 machine, you should basically still be able to do everything you're doing then on like Windows 10 or Windows 11, and that causes all kinds of problems, as you guys all know, being on PC. Like it's just
kidding.
a thing, right? Like, and there's plenty of problems on Mac too, but there's also plenty of gripes I have about them throwing out the old
Sure.
for the new, right? Like I'm like, fuck, I was doing it this way, goddamn. Now
Right.
you've changed that, like, but it's to each his own. It's whether you want that like new stability or old compatibility, I guess is a way to put it, right?
Yep.
So
I say fuck the compatibility. Like,
that's where I'm at. That's why I'm on Mac.
yeah.
That's why I may also be on Bitwig very soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
fucking right.
I'm definitely
I'm getting a little
intrigued.
sick of
for sure.
some of the stuff at Ableton for sure.
Yeah. Well, I still have both. As you see, Mr. Ableton is recording us right now. That's
Yep.
what he does now.
Yeah.
But also, like, what Ableton does that Bitwig doesn't do for me is I can put in an audio sample and turn it into MIDI. Like, that's the one thing I can't do in Bitwig. So
Oh,
it's nice to just
really?
hop into Ableton, do that real quick, then
We
bring
do
it back.
that all the time.
Yeah.
Turn it into what?
MIDI.
Oh,
Yeah,
you said Mindy. I was like, who's
Mindy.
Mindy?
It's Mindy.
my
So I
girlfriend
turn in audio,
Turn it into
and then I
Mindy.
turn it into Mindy.
using AI. Yeah, she's an AI software. My AI girlfriend.
So
Sorry, Dallas. I love you.
before we, God damn it, before we move on to our next segment, I do want to ask, what between each of you, what is like a fun new plugin or just technique you've been playing with? Because I feel like I haven't learned a lot of like new techniques lately, even if they're simple. I want something like new in my life.
Produce naked.
Produce new. And it doesn't even have to be like mind blowing or insane, but is there any like new things you've implemented into your process
Nude.
that you guys
Nude
things?
things.
Anything nude.
That's
He said it, not
For
me.
me, it's PCV. It's starting to do like real,
Yeah.
like hardcore sound design, like not just using a knit patch and serum.
Yeah, makes sense. VCV is
like,
ugh.
and it's a whole new. Spend hours and you make barely anything, right? But it's worth it, I think, in the long run. Like I feel like I finally have enough. Like I tried to dive into VCV years ago, and I just wasn't there with like my basic kind of using serum from
Right.
it for it to even make any remote sense to me. And within the last like couple weeks with me diving back in, I'm like, oh, like actually now I have enough of the terminology and the basics down using like a pre-wired synthesizer together.
Yeah.
you know, that now I can start ripping the pieces apart and rewiring it in a way.
Right.
And it's actually making sense to me.
Mm.
Also, I will shout out, is it Omri Cohen, I think is the YouTube channel. He's actually featured on VCV's website. So I think I don't think he's actually officially part of them, but he's like probably one of their biggest like supporters. Amazing YouTube channel for learning VCV rack and just synthesis in general. Like he's one of those people, I would describe him as the Dan Warhol of modular, like of VCV.
Wow.
Specifically.
So
like,
he's the guy to go
yeah.
to then. Okay.
Big ups.
you know, silky smooth voice, bit of an accent, but not enough to be like where it starts to like interfere with the learning. Like I struggle with that sometimes. With like I love foreign producers and YouTube channels, but sometimes it's just like you're describing very deep techniques, and your broken English can sometimes get in the way. No offense, right? Like it's just a part of the nature of it, and. He has a silky smooth voice that I can enjoy listening to for hours, right? And I've already like binged a bunch of his YouTube channel and just sat there like with every one of them like, all right, fresh VCV patch, what are you doing? And I'm just like following it like step by step every single time. And like I've already made like some amazing like generative like arpeggio, like ARP synths and like chord machines and like just incredible stuff that like is very straightforward and simple when he explains it, but I would have never come to that conclusion in 15 minutes or less, right? Which is like his videos. So, that's my big kick right now.
That's a good one.
As he knows,
That's a deep one.
I'm
He's
head
now
over
teaching
heels on
me that.
VCV
I'm like,
right
all
now.
right, let's go.
Is it a free program?
It's entirely so.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
There are 3 forks of the same program.
Okay.
I don't know when the fork specifically happened. Originally, it was all just VCV. And at some point, basically a couple of developers, they were going to make it as a plug-in version versus a standalone. And a couple of them felt that they should charge for that. It all started as open source, I'll preface. And a couple other developers were like, open source all the way. Like, we should never charge for anything. And so they forked it at that point, and it became Cardinal and VCV Rack. Cardinal's still out there. The latest version is maybe about a year or two old. It's far less comprehensive. Like there's 3,000 or 4,000 modules for VCV. There's only there's still over like 1,000 or 2,000.
How?
There's still over like 1,000 or 2,000 modules for Cardinal, like the fully open source version. But if you're looking for like I have this module in Eurorack and I want to test it. That's VCV. Like they're the most up-to-date official version that like, IntelliGel and all the like huge modular people, that's where their versions of it is the current version of VCV. Cardinal is just kind of slightly outdated and they can't incorporate those like super official modules because, that's where they want it to be. But Cardinal... It's all still totally free. The only thing you have to pay for with VCV is if you want to use it as a plugin inside, like the standalone version, which you can still send MIDI to, receive MIDI audio.
Can you like export the audio?
Oh yeah, you can still.
Yeah,
There's audio recording modules and stuff like within it if you wanted to just like still be just in that environment. The only thing they charge you for is if you want to use it as a plugin.
Okay. Honestly, that's fair.
And then they have a couple. There are they have a whole like library or store of modules, and there are some that are paid. Mm-hmm. Honestly, there's 3,500 modules that are free, so like you never have to pay for it. Like you really don't. And with something like on Mac, like when I'm using Mac, you can use what's called the IAC bus, the MIDI bus. So I can just send MIDI from Ableton right into this. It's a separate application, but I can just send MIDI to this virtual bus and in there, and then vice versa. Sure. And like the big thing I'm using it for these days is actually just all MIDI. I'm not even making patches in there. I'm using like all these insane sequencers and stuff that they have.
Yeah.
To just generate creative MIDI.
Yeah.
And then that's actually just going into Serum inside Ableton or whatever, right? To actually like give me like what I'm. I'm using it not for
Yeah.
the sound design capabilities. I'm using it for the compositional capabilities of it.
Right, the generative shit.
Yeah, because that's what's that. You asked like, how do I start a track? Well, this is. I'm like,
Now
Sure.
this is
right.
where we're at.
Give me some
Every
give
time
me
I
some
go up there,
racks
he's
that like
Make some
look what I do. I'm
sounds.
like,
spit me out like really interesting like chord progressions or really interesting like controllable midis. Like that's the big thing about VCV is that it's controllable randomness. It can be as wild
Yeah.
as you want, or
Yeah.
it can be like randomness, but it's very fine-tuned randomness in a way. And that's where I'm really like, I'm like, okay, this is what I need as like the next bit of like juice for
Yeah.
inspiration.
Right.
Is like
This is why I like Bitwig.
yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And that kind of thing is perfect for someone who is like, if anyone was curious about mod stuff, you don't have to spend.
Not $1.
Yeah,
Go download VCV.
because
That's
even to get like a tiny little mod setup, like I'm sure it's like 2,500 at least.
Oh,
for,
I
like,
went down this
5
whole rabbit hole
things.
over the
Yeah.
last month.
Yeah. So then now you're like, okay, I can dick around and get the concept of how it all works and try all these different things. Like,
Yep. It's how I literally ended up being like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just gonna stick with VCV. And I went out and bought 2 what are they? The little Akai MIDI mix. It's like the most basic little like
nice.
bank
Yeah.
of faders and a bunch of knobs.
Yeah.
Right, just so you can map things.
Yeah, because you can MIDI map everything. So
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'll just go buy those for. I bought 2 of them for $200, and I have more
As
faders
opposed to
and
a
MIDI
module
knob. Yeah, versus a module. Yeah, exactly. And
that you don't have an output for.
And my only limit is now my CPU, which
Yeah,
it's like you can build a rig that's $10,000 worth of modules before your CPU runs out.
Sure.
Like CPU wise, and it's all I'll ever need. So why not? And yeah, you don't get some of the tactile feedback. I think that's like maybe one of the big drawbacks. Why like there's still a huge community that like they literally use VCV as their testing ground for buying modules.
Sure,
It's
which
like,
makes sense.
Totally.
and that is the intended thing. But I'm sitting here, I'm like, well, why would you ever go and actually expend all that money when you can just continue doing it here in the virtual
Because
world?
hardware.
But you don't get the tactileness, you don't get
Yeah.
the permanence of the hardware.
I think the hardware gives you some little juice here and there too.
yeah, that's probably true.
I've sat with John while he's fucking with his like fucking massive thing of modules.
What is he up to these days?
Hitching a
And
tent.
How many? 6 rows, 5? The last time I checked, he was
No.
like
He
only
got
about
rid of
2
a
or
bunch.
3 of them.
He got rid of a bunch.
yeah, he's done a bunch of buying and selling.
Yeah. As they
but-
do.
Yes, as they do.
Yes, exactly. But
It's like Pokemon.
he would be able to tell you exactly what's worth spending some extra money
It's
on.
worse. It's worse than Pokemon.
Yeah, because you can't find them in the wild.
I got a graded Charizard. All right, come on.
All right.
No, I, David, I'll definitely grant you. I think
Pokemon talk. Fuck.
as with any, it's like there's something to the analogness of the hardware, right? There's something that you're never gonna get that in software. I
Get
just
damn
find
close.
Sure.
$10,000 or free.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh
Just
my god.
There's a fine line there.
Let me be clear. I have 0. I have a 1. I was born in a middle class family.
Oh my god.
All right, Kamala.
Sounds like
We
the
had to
rest
get
of
it in
us.
tonight. We had to get it in.
Kamala.
Jesus
I have
Christ.
a
on election night.
This will be titled the Election Night Podcast. So
Yes, let's go.
we had to get it in some point.
I have like a Behringer like poly synth, and I haven't used it. It's a MIDI keyboard.
It's a Matrix Brew,
That's
right?
all it is.
Yeah.
And it's a shitty MIDI keyboard. I can't like the knobs don't even program. Like it's just a keyboard for me at this
Feels
point.
nice.
Yeah.
Matrix Brew, right?
It looks pretty.
Same when he's out.
It does look pretty.
Yeah.
It looks
Yeah, he's always
all
had it.
crazy.
Yeah,
Sometimes
yeah,
that's
yeah.
all that matters.
Yeah, dude.
I honestly,
yeah.
I should plug it in and fuck with it again. I used to use it for the band.
I
when
will
we had
fully
a
admit
band.
that's why I own like half the gear in my studio.
Yeah,
Is so pictures look cool.
Yeah, I mean that's fair.
Otherwise, I would have sold it like 5 years ago because it's useless to me.
Bro,
I mean,
he's got a guitar hanging on the wall that's never come off the wall.
Yep,
for the
yep.
I
7
kinda
years.
know
oh
how
yeah,
to
you
play
got
the
it. You
guitar.
got it. Yeah.
But it makes you feel good when you sit down and you're like,
Well,
yeah, let's see.
if someone does roll in and knows how to play the guitar, you have a guitar.
It's there.
Yeah.
It's there for you. Actually.
It's not
I've
tuned.
got-
That's why I put it on that wall.
I have 4 guitars in my
Good
studio. I
answer.
haven't picked
It's a
them
good
up
answer.
since COVID.
I took
That is literally why I hung that guitar on my wall, just so that if you ever came over, I had a
Hilarious.
guitar.
Hilarious.
yeah, I took
Guys,
my
I
guitars
used
out
to
of my studio.
I used to play guitar a lot. What can I say?
I used to play guitar.
I used to play guitar.
You've played
It
it,
was
on
an
a couple of
amazing
our
guitar,
songs, I think.
probably the best guitar.
Totally.
All right,
Okay,
guys.
we need to move on.
We have a new segment since you were here last. It's whoever wants it. So these are talks for the pod. These are some TikToks that I've
shit.
cultivated.
Okay.
Oh, this
All
should
right.
be
Oh
interesting.
my gosh.
And
All right.
uh,
Jesus.
4 fresh videos for
That
you.
you've cultivated?
Prepare myself.
Cultivated.
We're reacting here.
yeah, it's basically we are going to become React Chads here.
I like this.
And
React Chads.
React Randy's.
React Randy's. So
My body's ready.
it's hard for Austin, but we're going to try not to talk while the pod is being played. And then we'll react after.
It's only if it looks bad.
Or if you've seen it before. I might have to adjust the audio. Give me 1 second.
I
Where
don't.
am I looking here? Either down here?
Yes,
Okay.
down here. This one's pretty interesting. I kind of knew this about Valhalla, but not quite to this
Valhalla.
extent. Valhalla.
I don't think this is talked enough about on the Valhalla, but this bass molt, this is really, really important. The bass molt scales the reverb decay time for bass frequencies relative to the decay parameter. Super important. So if you're at 3.55 seconds on your decay overall on your reverb, you can scale up the bass, which means any of these frequencies that you can sweep through, you can scale them up by 4 times. So taking that and scaling up those bass frequencies into the reverb can change the color quite a bit. So a lot of the times I find this at like 1.5 or something on defaults. I'll take this down, right? Because this is the mid-range. You can also, if you have something that's really dark and almost getting cloudy with your reverbs, you can go into where that cloudiness might be and you can take this down. So it actually makes less of that happen in the reverb decay time.
Interesting.
Very cool. Okay, so scaling up, he means that like ×4 knob is making it go ×4 based off your frequency
any
you're
of these
hitting.
Yes, wherever you set this.
So
big
that's
frequency,
decaying like longer.
Yes. Yes. So
Wow, I
if it's
didn't-
set at 2 seconds and you have the bass frequency at 200 hertz and the bass molt at 2x, then that 200 hertz is getting 4
No
seconds
shit.
now.
I thought
That's
Fab Pro
interesting.
R was the only plugin that you could
Right.
like do decay time for a specific frequency.
My
That's
question
so
is,
cool.
is it like a bell
Right.
around the bass
Right.
frequency, or is it
Right.
only that?
I
Or is
didn't
it
think
a
about that.
shelf?
I feel like
Right.
it's a shelf.
I think it's
Why
a
should
shelf
just
as
be
well.
like a
Everything below-
perfect,
below
super
that
harsh,
number?
like one frequency?
I haven't.
Yeah, you get a spike of just this one frequency.
I
yeah.
just saw this one the other day, so I haven't tested it out yet.
Probably
I
everything
know we need to
below
test this.
That's
that
what I
number.
think.
I would think so,
But
too.
Yeah.
I
Like
want.
a
Oh,
filter.
everything like a shelf?
This
Yeah,
is like
it
a
should-
really
it would
normal thing with reverbs, by the way.
Yeah.
Right.
Is it? Wow.
Yes.
But with vintage and Valhalla in general, I feel like we need to petition Dan Worrell to do his magic.
Oh my God, he should do everything
And-
with Valhalla.
and show us exactly what's happening.
Fab
is,
Filter
uh,
would probably have something to say about that. But
Well, they
what's
can
his
suck a
face
dick.
at Valhalla should definitely hire Dan
I
to
feel like
do a
they're
bunch of
pretty
videos.
open.
Right. Right.
The blog at Valhalla is amazing, by the way. If you guys
Oh, noisy.
Like-
Oh,
Vo-
interesting.
go
This will be
read
interesting.
like what's his face is the guy that runs Valhalla DSP. He has an entire like blog section to that website that is like
Well,
the behind like
Let's
how
go.
all of them work, and it's like he
That's
also
sick.
just like fundamentally explains like algorithmic reverb
Oh,
in a
that's
way that
sick.
you've like never heard.
Nerd.
before.
sick.
Love
That
that.
does sound. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go read the blog on Valhalla DSP. Like
When we play with Bitwig later, let's test that out.
Yeah.
Because I'm very curious.
Sure.
I use vintage all the time.
So this is a oldie but goodie. This is from like a documentary that Noisia did like years ago.
Really?
But I subscribe to this.
the age old question.
layer or not to layer.
Yes.
Oh,
Indeed,
are
the
they going to
age-old
talk about
question.
snares?
Yes.
Yeah.
I subscribe to this
I know this video.
80% of the time.
And I like to try and not layer too much. Like try and get as much as you can from one sound, or at least have a sound that because sometimes a lot of layering is cool, but like when it comes to transients, I think you have to be careful. But then apart from that, you can do a lot of things. Like I've done like some drums I've made where I would have something like this, then I'd bounce this out, cut the break up so that the first you cut the first 30 milliseconds of the drum hit and put it on a different channel, and then put like some wacky crossfade and between the tail and the transient, and then you don't really process the transient too much, but you mess around with the tail loads, like distort it and widen it and whatever. So then you get a huge sound, but your transient's still kind of, intact.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I find this amazing that you played this video because I was literally just talking to Noah on Wednesday about Noisia and how
No shit.
insanely obsessive
Yes.
that man is
Yes.
at processing stuff.
Yeah.
Nick is
There
insane.
you go, Noah.
Yeah.
The man is manually chopping his drum samples one hit at a time.
Yeah, 30 milliseconds.
Every 30 milliseconds,
that's
like the
absolutely-
transient.
And then
Moving that to another
then
channel, and
crossfading.
then, dude.
Dude.
and this video was from like 2010
Yeah,
or something.
they're on a
like,
CRT monitor.
They were doing
in that
this
video.
Yeah.
so
There's no flat
long
screens.
ago.
That's how
And I
old that
like
was.
the
There's plugins that'll do this for you now.
Yes.
John made a shaper box, or
that'll-
shaper box that'll do this for you.
Yeah. Because it's
a
like we
little
have the
rack.
technology now to not spend hours
Yeah.
chopping 8 bars, which is like basically what that man's doing in that video.
There's even, I think there's like plugins dedicated. I feel like you two got hyped on a plugin that was like a dedicated transient versus body versus tail processor.
Bitwig
There's so
has
many of
a-
them out there now.
Right.
Bitwig has
Okay.
a Spectral transient.
Oh yeah, you guys have that
Splitter.
built in.
Would that be Spectral? Would that
No,
count as
but-
Spectral?
It
No, but the
does have a
Bitwig
Spectral
has a Spectral
transient
splitter.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also what is it? Boz Digital makes like it's a transient.
Oh, I forgot
it's a
about that.
It's a transient shaper, but
Yeah.
it splits it like that. Like
Yeah.
it'll automatically detect transients versus body, and you can
Yeah,
play around
I
with
forgot
them.
about that one.
Wild.
Yeah.
Can we talk about how many different video editing things they
Thank
use?
you.
I was
Thank you.
hating
We're all
the
seeing
editing
that.
it so much.
I almost said
This
something
is the worst
mid-clip,
one.
and I was like, wait, Caleb told me not to do it.
This is the worst one. The one where it goes.
There's like little spots.
Yeah. That one, it gets all choppy. Yeah.
It's like, what is this? 2008? What are we doing
Yeah.
here?
They also have
2008.
the color
Yeah.
burn, like
Close.
orange film burning
Yes.
effect
Yeah.
a bunch.
Fucking.
But it's a 4x3 video.
Yeah.
So like, you know,
Hilarious. I'm glad you guys noticed that also.
Oh, yeah.
Fucking-
oh, did I copy the same one twice?
Uh-oh.
Yep, I sure
Yeah.
did.
Oh, yeah.
Womp.
Same link.
All right, last video.
Last video. Here we go.
oh, I thought you almost copied it 3 times.
All right, guys. This one's a fun one.
Okay.
Can you guess this sound just by looking at the waveform?
Gotcha. Oh.
Jesus.
What's up, girl?
Yeah, no.
Hang on. I
Secret
like
for a
this,
clip.
this other one that I had planned here. I don't know why.
What'd you think it
Send.
was?
I assumed it was probably that.
I
No,
initially
come
thought it was a
on.
perk.
but I thought it was a snare.
That's what
Yeah,
I
I
thought.
thought
like a snare.
my
Okay.
mind went to snare.
I-
yeah.
Or like a pluck. or
Who's gonna
something.
think we're like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
somebody's ass?
Yeah.
I've watched too much
That is
Bishu.
an
by the
ass.
waveforms.
I've watched too much Bishu and Eliminate
Oh.
to you know.
Shout out
something
Eliminate.
like something like that. It's probably a fart sound. Like,
Travis.
it's
Yeah,
just-
you can't trust them.
I thought it was a snare. I'm like, meh.
Yeah. Travis, that makes me so happy you watch Eliminate.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
The king shit poster of the production
Yes.
world. Dude,
Yes.
let's go.
Oh my gosh. I've been watching both of them since the pandemic when they both started streaming. And
Yep.
every week I still tune into their. I don't tune into the streams, but I watch like the YouTube
Yep.
recaps like
Same.
every week.
Same.
Amazing music, by the way. Like
Yeah.
I've learned so much
Oh, for sure.
from watching them and just like working fast the way they do, and like, and you know, FL. I mean, Eliminate works in FL, and I've learned a lot of things about FL, even though I've never
Same.
used it. Where like, I feel like I could sit down and actually probably reasonably use it. at
Just
this
from
point.
watching.
Just from watching.
Right.
You know, Like,
So this is Abstract.
Abstract, let's go.
As
his
you
pink
can
hair.
see, his 20 grand worth of modular behind him.
Oh God, fucking dead mouse over here.
So this one's another fun one.
So I'm sitting on like 32 new songs right now, so I'm just gonna show them all to you.
Humble flex.
At once.
oh, this is a man after my own heart.
Is
Plays them
Oh my
all
gosh.
at the same time.
All at the same. That
Such a
make
G.
That is how you show that off. Yes.
so good.
So funny.
His face during
Yeah,
it too.
this face right here, it's just
It's
like,
like, ew.
it's so bad. That is so bad.
I love him to death.
That's so
You know
good.
what's funny is I was literally thinking, I was like, that's a couple nights at the church. That's what that sounds like.
I
Like,
know.
all the rooms.
Oh my God, the church is so bad.
Standing by the
Hilarious.
bathrooms. That's what it sounds
Yeah.
like at the church. Yes.
Church is so bad.
You just
Can't
tugged
stand
at
it.
our heartstrings with that joke. I love that. We shit on the church acoustics so often.
Yeah, constantly.
Thank you.
It's because it's a church.
To
Yeah.
the chagrin.
There are no
of Brendan.
acoustics.
Well, guys, thanks for coming on the pod this week.
Thanks for having us, guys.
We just did an hour and a half.
Ooh, was it an hour and a half?
An hour and a half.
Let's go.
We cruised.
Yeah.
Easy street.
Cruising. Yeah.
Let
down the
the
street
internet
in
know
my
where they can
6.
find you and your new single.
Let's go.
Yes. So look up NT2 Music, basically anywhere. Instagram, Twitter, or no, we're not
No,
on
we're
Twitter.
not
I
on
don't know
Twitter,
why I threw that out there.
Facebook,
I'm on X personally. That's why.
Spotify,
Yes.
Apple.
Spotify, YouTube, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
New song, Adagio for Rave, just came out on the 27th. Plenty more in the works.
Let's go.
We need to get on the scheduling.
Yeah, we're
as
sitting
well.
on
Yeah,
about 20 right now, so we gotta
Oh,
get them out.
perfect.
At
Perfect.
Fucking
least.
go.
That's how you do it.
That's
You
sick.
build up the catalog and then you decide the release plan, and now
We-
you get to sprinkle and have fun
We
with
spent
all
a
that.
year building the catalog, and then I was like, I think it's time, my guy.
Let's go. Let's go.
I'm pulling the you guys over here. I'm like, let's just keep making music.
Yeah, I know,
Tell me
right?
about
It's
it.
not a bad thing. I'm totally down, but at some point, I'd like for people to hear our stuff.
Yeah. NT2 Music anywhere. Linktree.com, NT2. That's really the hub, actually.
Yeah, I'll
for
have
everything.
the links in the description.
Yeah. Iron Mountain, Nobex. Yeah.
Thank you guys for being here.
Big ups.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Thank you.
Folks,
That's
hit
it, man.
the subscribe and follow button. We love you, and we'll see you next week, guys.
Later.
Doses.
Peace.
Peace.